The following mini-documentary has no intention of promoting or providing this practice. Its only purpose is to inform and show the different positions that exist on this subject from a neutral point of view. The term comes from the Greek eu, which means good, and thanatos, death. So, etymologically, it means good death, but from a scientific or medical point of view, it's much more. Euthanasia is the process of accelerating the death of a person with an incurable disease to prevent suffering. In euthanasia, it's a medical team that must intervene to administering lethal drugs to the person who wishes to die. It's necessary to clarify that euthanasia is not the same as assisted suicide, which essential difference is in who executes the action. Assisted suicide consists of helping a person to do it. It's not the doctor who does it. The Netherlands was the first country in the world to legalize euthanasia in 2002. Since then, another four have followed in its footsteps, with more or less restrictive regulations. They are Belgium, Luxembourg, Canada, and Colombia, according to the data from the Right to Die Dignity Association (DMD). Meanwhile, the parliaments of Spain and Portugal are debating the approval of a regulation, and New Zealand will vote on it in a referendum next year. In addition, 3 other countries, Switzerland, some states of the USA, and the state of Victoria in Australia, allow assisted suicide. In countries where euthanasia is legal, for example the Netherlands, for a patient to be able to request his death, the requirements are very strict. The patient must reside in the Netherlands. The request of euthanasia or aid to suicide must be repeated, voluntary. The sufferings must be intolerable and with no prospect of improvement. The patient must have been informed of the situation and prognosis. The doctor who is going to apply euthanasia is obligated to consult the case with a partner or 2 in the event that the suffering is psychological, who has to issue the corresponding report. Nowadays, euthanasia is a subject of debate. Some consider it a form of murder, and it is quite the idea that it's something legal, it's inconceivable. But for another group of people, euthanasia is an act of mercy, which is justified with the idea that prolonging the life of a person who has a terminally ill only extends their suffering, and is better to give them a quick death. From the point of view of religion, specifically the Catholic one, euthanasia is an act of murder that can never be justified, a crime against the human life, and an inherently evil act in all situations and circumstances. The Vatican says that those who pass laws in favor of euthanasia and assisted suicide are accomplices of a grave sin that others will Speaking from a medical point of view, opinions of euthanasia are divided, as it addresses a very sensitive issue on bioethics. Most doctors and medical institutions prefer not to talk about the subject and support the idea to the professional duty of the doctor that is to safeguard life. The question here is, at what point does life cease to be? At what point does life is a right and not an obligation? For example, a doctor from Belgium, Dr. Téllez, has been practicing euthanasia for a long time, and in an interview he said, "It is an important, difficult act that has a great emotional impact. I do not call it killing a patient. I shorten his agony, his suffering. I provide the final care." Of course, There are also doctors who refuse to practice euthanasia, not only for legal reasons, it also carries a great emotional charge. An agreement will probably never be reached regarding whether euthanasia is a benevolent or evil act. Of course, the context of each country is different and there are some who are more liberal than others. The legalization of euthanasia is and will continue to be an issue that has many opinions and points of view. All of them are very respectable and it's also important to know them, to have a better idea of this situation and act prudently.